The Live Stream Code and Rating Administration has rated this online event PG. All ages admitted. Please be kind and stay on topic.
Hey, welcome to another edition of Classic TV Funhouse. I'm your host, Dave Sundstrom, and wow, I've never encountered that before. I was getting an error message from StreamYard saying that they were having network issues and that they were working on creating more resources, but that I needed to wait 30 to 60 seconds, which I did 2 or 3 times. Anyway, I'm here. You're here. Let's see. I say you're here. Let's see who is with us right now. First to arrive looks like it was Melina Long, who points out that Adam West and Val Kilmer, among others, have played Batman. Rachel in the 208 is in the house. They say, I'm here for this one. Woohoo! Back from vacation. Well, welcome back, Rachel. Good to have you with us. Ernest Cruz is with us as well. Channel member Superplex is in the house. Welcome, Zuper. Always great to have you with us. And good afternoon to you, good sir. Danny Staten is here. Greetings from South Carolina. Danny texted me yesterday letting me know about the passing of Brian, Wilson from the Beach Boys, which I should grab this and show you. In honor of Brian, I have been listening to this today, Surfing Safari by the Beach Boys. So many great songs on this album. Really, really a good one. Although, one of their lesser known albums, but Surfing Safari, of course, the single. And other songs on this album: County Fair, 10 Little Indians, Chug-a-Lug, Little Miss America, Surfin', Head You Win, Tells I Lose, Summertime Blues, Cuckoo Clock, Moondog, and The Shift. Danny was telling me yesterday that he gets, let me adjust this chair a little bit. There we go. People get after him for calling the Beach Boys a boy band, but the Beach Boys, they were a boy band, obviously from another decade. You had the Backstreet Boys and New Kids on the Block, all those, the 80s and the 90s are huge for boy bands. But these guys were one of the OGs. And Brian Wilson, of course, what a talent. He was a tremendous musician, a wonderful songwriter, really just very, very innovative and creative in terms of the sound that he helped to develop for the Beach Boys. All right, who else is here? I think I've said hi to Ernest already. Channel member Sean Innes says, hello, all superheroes, huh? Yeah, today's superheroes. So, well, among other things, we'll talk about stuff. Won't be doing much talking about Christopher Reeve today, but what a wonderful actor. And not really my first Superman. My first Superman was George Reeves. But I sure did love Christopher in that first Superman movie in 1978, and then follow-up Superman 2 was pretty darn wonderful as well. Willie Bowen is here. C. Jones is here. Ian Hamblin is here. Sure, you can always get a shout-out. I try to, at the beginning of all of my live streams, for those folks that have arrived early, to give them a shout-out. Now, I don't always do that afterwards, but you're here. You're here early. Yeah, good to have you here. Consider yourself shouted and outed. Yeah, I think something's up with StreamYard today, which is disappointing. They've always been so incredibly reliable. Let's see, Karen Lester is here. Claude Sailing is here. Look at this. Channel member John Collins says, I'm here even though there was no warning. Well, not true. I posted a community message earlier this morning, John, letting folks know that I was doing a live stream. I know that YouTube doesn't do a great job of pushing out the notifications, but I will, primarily because of our conversation last week, John, If I know that I'm going to do a classic TV Funhouse live stream, which they're all fairly impromptu. I do them when I have the time, when I feel like I'm going to have an hour free. I will post a community message trying to give folks at least a handful of hours notification. Ernest Cruz says, don't forget Kirk Allen as Superman. I shall not. One of the first actually, live action Superman, I believe. Of course, not on television, but in the on the serials, those matinee serials during the 30s and 40s. Let's see. Ha! Danny says, I went back and told them I mentioned 60s boy band, not 50s. And Dave, they get madder. Oh my goodness. Well, they were primarily a band that I think hit their apex during the 60s. Adrian James, good to have you here with us. Lila Mirabella, welcome to the live stream. It's Two Beers here, says Giddy Up 409, so cool. Raja 1938, welcome. Channel member Lance Chaffin says Dave is froze. That could be issues on the StreamYard side, which I'm not going to be able to control. We're going to just do our very, very best to get through this, to power through this hour of the classic TV Funhouse. And we're going to start by, I put together a little video early this morning about classic television and superheroes in the 70s. So I think we'll start there. I'll play some. This is the Funhouse. So I'm going to play some music. I'm going to play some commercials. I'm going to play all sorts of stuff. And we are just going to have a great time for the next hour. Click that thumbs up button, folks. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, why not? Why not, right? And let's get rolling. Let's get rocking and rolling. Superhero TV shows in the 70s. Yep, there were a bunch of them. If you were flipping through channels in the 1970s, you know it was a surprisingly good time for superheroes on TV. After the goofy fun of the 1960s Batman, television started taking its heroes a little more seriously. The special effects, of course, weren't anything like what we have today, but these shows had a certain amount of charm and managed to hook millions of viewers every week. They proved that superhero stories could be about more than just action. A couple of really good examples: Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk. Linda Carter started playing Wonder Woman in 1975, and for many, she was, is, and will always be Wonder Woman. The show was a huge hit, starting with her adventures in World War II on ABC before jumping on over to CBS and the 1970s. She was powerful and inspiring, and her show became a really positive and important part of the decade. Then you had The Incredible Hulk, which hit television screens in 1977. This show was pretty much the opposite of Wonder Woman. It was a much sadder, way more serious story. Just compare the music in the two TV shows, right? You've got that upbeat, disco-y Wonder Woman theme, and then you've got that sad, somber piano music that is in The Incredible Hulk. Anyway, this TV show followed Dr. David Banner, who was played brilliantly, absolutely brilliantly, by Bill Bixby, who was basically a fugitive. He wandered from town to town trying to find a cure for the giant green monster that he turned into whenever he got angry. Bodybuilder Lou Ferrigno played the Hulk, and the show was less about superhero fights and more about Banner's personal struggle. I loved it, and other people loved it for its heart. And of course, there were other superhero shows on the air during the 70s. On Saturday mornings, kids could watch Shazam, where a young man named Billy Batson would yell the magic word Shazam and turn into the mighty Captain Marvel. And it was often shown alongside The Secrets of Isis, another really fun show about a teacher who could call on ancient powers to become a superheroine. Marvel tried to get another big hero on TV with The Amazing Spider-Man, starring Nicholas Hammond. Remember that one? It was pretty popular for a while, but the low budget really held it back. Spidey mostly fought regular criminals instead of supervillains from the comics, and it didn't last very long, despite relatively good ratings. There was also a couple of television movies for Captain America and one for Doctor Strange, but they didn't really take off, and they never became full shows. Just as the decade was ending, I'm sorry, but I had to mention this one. Things got really weird with a 2-part special called Legends of the Superheroes over on NBC. It aired in 1979, and it was so silly. It felt like a throwback to the campy 60s Batman TV show, and in fact, Adam West and Burt Ward even came back to play Batman and Robin. The show was basically a variety special with a laugh track featuring a bunch of DC superheroes like The Flash and Green Lantern in their first live-action appearances, by the way. The second part was even a celebrity-style roast of the superheroes. Anyway, it didn't go over well with me or the viewing public. Most people remember it for being incredibly cheesy and a bit of an embarrassment, especially when compared with the more serious TV shows of the time. It was a strange final burst of campiness before superhero stories really started getting much bigger and more serious on the movie screen in the 80s.
Premiering Friday after Wonder Woman, it's the all-new Incredible Hulk. A radiation experiment has unleashed the ultimate mutation, turning David Banner into a superhuman beast whenever he becomes angered. Bill Bixby stars in the Incredible Hulk, premiering Friday at 9, 8 Central and Mountain.
America needs a new hero. Someone exciting. Someone young.
You are a college boy, aren't you, boy?
Someone strong.
I forgot to tell you, this college boy is into pumping iron.
Someone with a body of steel.
You expected a glass jaw?
The superhero of the 90s is here. And his name is Superman.
You know, Avery, not once have I heard you say, thank you, Jack. For what? For what? Well, just for inviting some of the biggest names in show business for your nephew's birthday party, that's all.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, Robbie will be thrilled, Jack.
Oh, just Robbie, I suppose. Not.
Well, you don't expect me to be taken in by these guys, do you?
What are you talking about?
Well, take Superman. He doesn't really fly. And Batman. Nobody's that clever.
I do not believe what I hear coming out of your mouth. Are you kidding? What? Thanks to Batman and Superman, people like you can sleep safely at night. And who are they doing it for? For the children of this country. They set the kind of good example that every American can be proud of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Huh?
Proud. I never looked at it that way.
See, Mr. Schreiber, our TV show Super Friends is based on the notion that justice must triumph.
That's right. Wonder Woman, Superman, Aquaman, Robin, and I are all members of the Justice League. And every episode of Super Friends is packed with excitement and adventure, whether we're working alone or together.
Today is June 16th, 2021. It was on this day in 1959 that one of the all-time TV greats, George Reeves, left us. While I still wouldn't be born for a few more years, I know from talking to numerous people who were kids at the time that when news broke about his passing, it was just absolutely gut-wrenching news. How could Superman be dead? George Reeves had been so good as Superman and his mild-mannered alter ego Clark Kent on TV. Too good, in fact. Over the show's 6 seasons and 104 episodes, George became the Man of Steel so convincingly that everyone seemed to forget that he was an extremely versatile actor who could play lots of different roles. In fact, George Reeves' debut role on the silver screen was in the classic 1939 film Gone with the Wind. And in 1953, Reeves appeared in another one of Hollywood's most memorable films, From Here to Eternity. But when kids across the United States started watching Superman at home on their TV sets every week, all bets were off. This man was Superman. My first exposure to George and his portrayal of Superman on television was during the 70s when the show played in reruns every day after school. I originally watched the show because I loved the Batman TV series starring Adam West and needed to get my superhero fix, but over time, things changed. I continued to watch the show day in and day out because of George and his earnest portrayal of Superman. Unlike Adam West's Batman, Reeves played Superman with such a genuineness that I think he really created a connection between him and his audience, which is one of the reasons why his passing was so darn difficult for everyone back then. What am I saying? It's still difficult now. So I know that there are those out there who cling to conspiracy theories about George's death. Heck, I've been guilty of that myself. A couple years back, I made a video talking about all of the strange circumstances that surrounded George's apparent suicide. But today, let's forget all that. Let's focus on what's really important and simply celebrate the man and his body of work. Prior to Reeves' ultimate typecasting as Superman, he showed up in over 50 different films during the 40s and early 50s. And much like the Man of Steel himself, George Reeves was a force to be reckoned with. Alright, now it's your turn. Please share your memories of George Reeves or the Adventures of Superman TV series in the comments section. And while you're at it, if you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. What the heck, maybe even subscribe to the channel. I talk about music, movies, and mostly television from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. You know, the good stuff. But most importantly, and as always, thank you so much for watching. Yeah, classic TV from decades gone by. Definitely the good stuff. Hey, I gotta say hello to my buddy Crazy Joe. Looking forward to doing a collab with you in the not too distant future. Yeah, so you guys are talking about Alan Ritchson right now, who played Aquaman in Smallville, played Hawk on Titans on the HBO series. Also was a turtle in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies, the more recent ones. He did he was one of the guys that was in the costume that then they did all the CGI over on top of, if that makes any sense. Let me see who else is hanging out. Joe says Hawkman looked ridiculous in that Legends special. I thought a lot of them looked ridiculous. The Flash costume looked horrible. None of them looked good. And poor Adam West brought his own costume because they didn't have a costume that looked the part of the 66 TV show. And if you remember right, the cowl didn't fit right. It was just the whole affair was sad. And someone mentioned that we took it because that's what we had back then. And that is true. I watched it as well and just enjoyed it for what it was, because this is it. Raja 1938 says, saw Legends of the Superheroes. I didn't complain, as live action superhero stuff was hard to come by. Indeed it was. What other comments should we highlight here? Ernest Cruz points out they changed Banner's name from Bruce to David. Yes, they did. Speculation was they thought that Bruce sounded too, for lack of a better way to say it, too gay. They felt like that was a stereotypical gay name, which nothing wrong with that, guys. This is Pride Month, and I say you love who you want to love in this old world. It's hard enough to find a person to love. But we're not going to get on politics here. But yes, that's why they changed it. Let's see, what do we got? Danny says, Robin wrecked the Batmobile. They had to jog that famous line, wait till I get you back to the Batcave. Crazy Joe asks if anybody remembers Jerry O'Connell's superhero sitcom, My Secret Identity. I didn't watch it, but I certainly remember it. Willie Bowen points out that Bill Bixby was in My Favorite Martian, The Courtship of Betty's Father, The Magician, which I loved, and The Incredible Hulk. Also, what was it? Goodnight Beantown later on. Melena's pointing out numerous actresses who played Catwoman: Eartha Kitt, Anne Hathaway, Julie Newmar. Don't forget, oh, you got Lee Merriweather in there. Well done. And Zoe Kravitz, most recently on the big screen. Channel member Superplex points out that Jack Burns did not cut it on the Andy Griffith Show. He did not. I love Jack and I have tremendous respect for him. But those were big shoes to fill. And holy cow, he was not able to do that. Let me look here. Channel member John Collins says, wait a minute. Chuck Woolery, he portrayed Superman? He did. That was a Saturday morning preview show for 1973 when Super Friends debuted. And so they had a couple of actors playing Superman and Batman. Channel member Sean Innes says, I was pleased how long Jack Larson, Noel Nell lived to appear in other Superman properties. Yeah, Noel was in the original Superman movie. I don't think Jack made an appearance in that one. And looking forward to it, Joe. Hey, I'll reach out to you. I know I can. Motion capture. That's what I wanted to say when it came to Alan Richardson and the Turtles. Look at that. Mike Davis is here. Welcome, Mike. Good to have you with us. Good to have you with us. We're just talking about superheroes for the next 40, 45 minutes or so. Superheroes on TV. Crazy Joe's asking if I remember the Hawkman Baby Ruth TV commercial from the 90s. No, I do not. I hope it's on YouTube. If it is, I'm going to snag it, play it in a future live stream. Let's see. Danny Staten says, when I was a kid, Legends of the Superheroes was a lot better when I was 7. Indeed, it is. Hey, Kenneth. Good to have you here. Raja 1938 says, I heard the TV producer didn't like alliterative names as they were too comic booky. Well, there's another reason right there. Okay. Gentleman, or Crazy Joe, a.k.a. Joe Fiore, is debunking what I said earlier, and I'm happy to be debunked here. Kenneth Johnson has debunked the gay rumor. He said that CBS thought the alliteration of Bruce Banner sounded too childish. Okay, good enough. Mike Davis loved My Secret Identity. Let's see. And just bought the Magician series on DVD a few months back. I didn't know it was available. I might have to pick that up myself. Love that show. Hey, channel member Tracy Roth Myers is here. Welcome, welcome. Good to have you with us, Tracy, and thank you for all your support. Mike Davis says, I used to love the Saturday morning preview shows. Good times. So did I. Those were on Friday evening, right before the new lineup of cartoons. So much fun. Get me so excited for the next day. You know, it was almost as good as Christmas Eve. Not quite, but almost as good as Christmas Eve. Channel member Sean Innes says, Mike Davis, I used to sit with one of my sisters and plan out my viewing schedule of the new Saturday morning cartoons from 7 or 8 a.m. to about 1 p.m. They started at 6 out here in Utah, and I would plan them out as well. Let's see. I think I'm pretty much caught up. Folks are saying hi to each other, all that kind of stuff. Let's dig into some more fun from the Funhouse. And what should we do next? I think what we'll do is we'll do a little something on Captain America during the 70s. And then we'll maybe a little musical interlude, a Batman musical interlude. I don't know. We're going to wing it. As I was putting together this video, my oldest son, Spencer, walked into my office and asked, "Who the heck is that?" When I told him it was Captain America, he said, "You've got to be kidding me." "Is a motorcycle helmet really part of the costume?" he asked. Of course, Spencer will never understand. Over the past few years, he and his brothers have been treated to some amazingly awesome comic book accurate versions of both Marvel and DC characters. But for those of us who are a little bit older, we got stuff like this. I mean, it was great, really, it was. I didn't have any money to spend, so I was grateful that Spidey Captain America and the Incredible Hulk showed up on television. I do remember, however, being a little disappointed that these television counterparts were just a little lacking. It was mostly the computer-generated graphics, or lack thereof. All of the special effects were practical special effects, and they were severely limited by budget or by technology, or most often by both. Still, I was thrilled to see these heroes in live action.
Bucket now.
Okay, true confessions time. I may have added some sound effects and dialogue to that clip. But you get my point. They were way better than the old motion picture serials from the 30s and 40s. Light years ahead, really. And even though Batman isn't a Marvel character, this image really hammers home my point. By the time the 60s and 70s rolled around, live-action comic book heroes had come a very long way. So that brings us back to Captain America. Starring the great Red Brown, at times this movie seemed to want to focus more on Cap's motorcycle, but I guess that makes a lot of sense. Evel Knievel was still a pretty big deal in the late 70s, and if you can tap into that audience, well, why wouldn't you? The story and spirit was fairly faithful to the general themes of Captain America, but there were a few things that bugged me. And when I say a few things, I mean mostly it was the costume. It just didn't look like Captain America's costume. Even as a young boy, I understood limitations with special effects, but for the life of me, I couldn't understand why this movie didn't start with a more accurate costume. Looking back at it now, maybe it's that they were trying to make it look more like Evel Knievel's trademark jumpsuit. One thing that didn't bug me, however, was Red Brown's co-star Heather Menzies. At the moment, I can't remember whether this aired before or after Logan's Run TV series, but I'm thinking after. Heather, though, she rocked it in the role of Dr. Wendy Day. Beautiful and smart, Heather Menzies made everything that she was on a little bit better. And I guess I shouldn't complain too much about the costume, because by the end of this movie, the stage had been set for a more comic book accurate version of the costume to be worn if there was ever a sequel. And guess what? There was a sequel. Not even a year later, Red Brown starred in Captain America 2. Connie Selica took over the role of Dr. Day from Heather Menzies, and really, if I were to think about it, that's exactly who I would have chosen if I'd been asked to find a replacement. And as I mentioned, this time the costume was more accurate. Captain America was still wearing a motorcycle helmet, though, but at least the wings weren't painted on this time around. Truthfully, I feel like the sequel, which had the subtitle of Death Too Soon when it was released theatrically in Europe, was an improvement all around, and I was excited to potentially see a Captain America weekly series. It never happened. But Reb did a great job as Steve Rogers / Captain America. He certainly had the physique for it, and he really seemed to be enjoying himself. Of course, who wouldn't when you get to play opposite the legendary Count Dooku himself, Christopher Lee? And I did promise we were going to talk about Red Brown a bit. I remember him in an episode of Happy Days where he and Ralph Malph ended up in a boxing ring. Vague memories, but still good ones. Man, I thought the Fonz was so cool back then. And then just before the Captain America TV movies, he was in a film called Big Wednesday, a film that starred William Catt, Gary Busey, and the recently departed Jan Michael Vincent. But if we're going to talk about Reb Brown's post-Captain America career at all, we've got to talk about You're the Hunter from the Future. This is a film that should not, cannot be missed. I know it has been showcased on Mystery Science Theater 3000, but really, this is one of those movies that deserves your complete attention. The movie is an adaptation of a comic book from Argentina. It's directed by an Italian filmmaker named Antonio Margheriti. I believe it was partially filmed in Turkey and some in Italy, so it really is an international effort. It was Margheriti's most successful film and was distributed in the US by Columbia Pictures, if I remember correctly. I saw this one in the theater with my buddies way back then, and I'm pretty sure we made fun of it on the way home, but I've returned to this movie multiple times since then. Why? Well, because truth be told, I enjoy it. Sure, it's a B movie, maybe even a C movie, but it sure is fun.
He is from a future world, trapped in another time, searching for his past. A hunter of incredible power and strength. In his quest for his origin, he and the woman he loves must fight hostile tribes. battle deadly beasts and try to survive the violent forces of a newly born Earth. He is the warrior known as Yor.
And Brown went on to make more and more movies, especially during the late 80s, early 90s. Most of them along the same lines as Yor, but in the late 80s, well actually 86 I think, his turn as a serial killer in the film Death of a Soldier actually earned him some great reviews and some nice accolades. Fast forward to present day, and Reb can be found from time to time at comic book conventions. Word is that he's every bit as delightful to visit with as you might expect, and yes, he has more than a few stories to tell. And I bet some of them have to do with those Captain America TV movies from the late 70s. There is an awful lot that Reb Brown can be proud of. He may be forgotten by some as one of the first actors to give us a live-action interpretation of Captain America, but he will always be remembered by me, right along with Adam West, Bill Bixby, Nicholas Hammond, and Linda Carter. This guy did the character proud. Nicely done, Mr. Brown. Nicely done. Alright, one last pick, this time from another Reb Brown classic, Space Mutiny. Yep, that's the movie where he met his wife, the beautiful Sissy Cameron. Great, great memories. Okay, now it's your turn. Share your memories in the comments section. If you like this video, I would truly appreciate a thumbs up, a share on Facebook or Twitter, and what the heck, why not consider subscribing to my channel? I talk about music, movies, and television, mostly from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. You know, the good stuff. But most importantly, and as always, thank you so much for watching.
Holy reunion movie.
Great Caesar's ghost.
Adam West and Burt Ward together again.
Holy henchman, Adam.
Flashback to the original Batman TV show.
It's so strange about two guys who run around in tights and live together.
And find out what went on.
Since Adam has a stuntman, shouldn't I have one?
When the costumes came off.
Has anybody seen my bath suit? Oh, life is good, Bert.
Return to the Batcave, CBS next Sunday.
Holy jailbreaks! Yes, sir! I'll pass that message on.
Who was that, Rob?
Commissioner Gordon, Batman. The tickler broke out again. And he's taken several prominent citizens as hostages.
This looks like a job for the dynamic duo.
When you hear the squeal of the Batmobile, look out, it's Batman and Robin. On the trail of another desperate man. When they hear that sound, all the books around, it's Batman and Robin. They get out of town as quickly as they can.
This is it. The Tickler's secret hideout. The dastardly fiend always returns here.
Look at all those people with pink faces, Batman. You think they've been drinking too much carrot juice, huh?
No, Robin. They're being tickled pink. Great Scott! What's that noise? They seem to be moving downwards.
You tumbled right into my tickling trap. Even as I speak, you're heading towards the dreaded tickling chamber.
Oh, no!
Oh, yes! I can see the headlines now. Batman and Robin tickle the death.
This looks like the end, old chum.
Don't worry, Robin. There's something here in my utility belt that just might save our capes.
When you hear the squeal of the Batmobile, look out, it's Batman and Robin. On the trail of another desperate man. When they hear that sound, all the books around, it's Batman and Robin. They get out of town as quickly as they can land.
Here we are in the tickling chamber. Holy buckshot! What are you throwing, Batman?
Simple pepper, Robin. It's the only thing the Tickler's vulnerable to. I'm hurling it into the ventilation system. It can only be a matter of moments before... There he blows!
Let's keep pepper throwing, peacekeeper!
Let's get these these citizens untied and out of here.
But Batman, the tickler's getting away.
Don't worry, Boy Wonder. He may have tickled his way out of jail, but he's going to sneeze himself right back in.
Holy pepper pot, Batman, you've done it again.
Yes.
When you hear the squeal of the Batmobile, look out, it's Batman and Robin on the trail of another desperate man. When they hear that sound, all the crooks around whisper, Batman and Robin. They get out of town as quickly as they can.
All right. We're going to watch another video in just a minute. But right now I've put a poll up. You guys are going to help me decide which video we should watch next. Whether we're going to watch a video about Judy Strangis, who many of you know is Dyna Girl in Electra Woman and Dyna Girl, or should we watch something about Power Records? Power Records was, well, it was a division of Peter Pan Records, but they sold comic books and records that you would play and listen to, right? During the 70s. I think it was the 70s. I don't know if they made it into the 80s, but boy, did I have a bunch of Power Records. So we'll check the poll in just a minute and make that decision, but I want to read a few more comments. So let me scroll back up to where I was. Let's see. Looks like we've got some milestone chats. Let's see here. Channel member John Collins used his milestone chat to say thanks for everything. He's been a member for 44 months. That is just incredible. And John will be the first to point out that's really more like, I don't know, in the 50s. Because before I had YouTube channel memberships, I was offering channel memberships through Patreon. So thank you for all your support, John. Channel member Sean Innes used his milestone message to say, I didn't beat John, but did I beat Lance Chaffin? Well, you didn't beat John. I think you could beat Lance right now, but it's not a contest. Just use it if you want to. If you don't want to, you don't have to. But 30 months, my friend. Thanks for the support. Truly appreciate it. And look at this. Channel member Sean Innes also gifted a membership to the channel. That is incredibly generous of you, Sean. Thank you so much for doing that. Let me see if I can see who that was gifted to. It's hard to sometimes see that. Boy, I would like to, though. Oh, look at that. And it was gifted to Lance Chaffin. How cool is that? At one point, you weren't able to direct those channel memberships, your gifts. They just were kind of like randomly doled out. But it looks like you were able to gift that directly to Lance, who, you know what, Lance Chaffin, such a great guy who has been a supporting channel member for a long time, but right now just hasn't been able to afford it. So that's really nice of you, Sean. Thank you for doing that. All right. With that said, let me take a look at the poll. Let's see where we're at. Looks to me like Judy Strangis is our winner with 60%, 62% now of the votes. So let me go ahead and move over to my media section here. And I promise the Judy Strangis video is coming up in just a moment. We're going to watch some Linda Carter commercials, maybe even a little hostessy thing, and then Judy's coming right up. So let's see. What did I say? Wonder Woman first. Here we go.
Look who's turning Diet 7-Up. I guess you have to give up a lot to fit into your costume, huh, Linda?
I don't have to give up anything, Don. Remember, I'm a star. Besides, any diet drink can help me fit into my costume.
Then why the Diet 7-Up, sweetie?
Because it's crisp, it's light, it doesn't have that funny diet taste. Why are you drinking it, Don?
Well, I like the taste, too.
That's impossible.
Why is that?
Because you don't have any taste, Donnie, dear.
Oh, you're a beauty. Ooh, a dandy.
A man bent on revenge threatens the powers of Wonder Woman.
You killed my brother.
And this man's on the loose with this awesome power.
Next, a hunter finds prize game on Logan's Run.
You stalked and killed every kind of animal.
You'll be my ultimate challenge.
Then on Switch, a driver's death forces Pete and Mac into a deadly race.
You're either gonna have to drive that car or blow your cover.
If he gets too close, you kill him.
It's a super evening of excitement and drama. The new adventures of Wonder Woman, Logan's Run, and Switch. Friday beginning at 8, 7 Central and Mountain.
Sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't. Almond Joy's got nuts, Mounds don't. Almond Joy's got real milk chocolate, coconut and munchy nuts too. Mounds got deep dark chocolate and chewy coconut. Ooh. Sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't. Peter Paul, Almond Joy's got nuts, Peter Paul, Mounds don't. Because sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't.
Welcome to another episode of Hostess Comic Book Theater. This week's episode is Batman and the Mummy.
The Mummy has captured the Professor and his beautiful daughter.
Great cheer-ups!
They violated the tomb of his ancestors and he wants revenge. I'll roll this 2-ton stone, they'll never get out alive.
Even my special mummy ray gun won't stop him.
Well, after all, you can't kill a mummy.
Right, he's already dead. What'll we do?
We've got to have a secret weapon. I've got it.
What is it? We've got to act fast.
We'll lure him away with an offer he can't resist.
Seems I've heard that somewhere before. What's that?
Delicious, Hostess Twinkies. I can't resist that moist sponge cake and creamy filling.
Here he comes.
I've been around for 2,000 years and I've never tasted anything so good. Now's our chance to escape. Let's go. Gee, thanks, Batman and Robin.
For these delicious Hostess Twinkies.
You get a big delight in every bite of Hostess Twinkies.
Judy Strangis, or should I say Dyna Girl. Judy was such a prolific television actress during the 60s and 70s. Even if you don't immediately recognize her name, I guarantee that you've seen her in something. For me, Judy will always be best known as Dyna Girl in the Sid and Marty Krofft Saturday morning classic Electra Woman and Dyna Girl, part of the Krofft Super Show. Electra Woman and Dyna Girl co-star Deidre Hall as the titular superheroine, and Judy was her younger sidekick, a female boy wonder, if you will. The show was patterned after the Batman TV series from the late 60s, and just like that show, it was a whole heck of a lot of fun. But as I mentioned, that was the mid-70s. And Judy, well, she'd been working in the entertainment industry for a very long time. So let's go all the way back to Spike Jonze. The legendary band leader was actually Judy's uncle, and his TV show from the early 60s allowed young Judy to make a handful of appearances. This wasn't her first gig. She'd actually guest starred in a few other TV shows and even made a movie earlier than that. But Uncle Spike's fame and notoriety helped other family members, including Judy, make important connections within the industry. In fact, Judy's brother worked behind the scenes on the aforementioned Batman TV series from the 60s. And Judy, looking very much like Dyna Girl undercover here, made an appearance on a couple of episodes early on. I think they were ones with Catwoman, and if I remember correctly, musicians Chad and Jeremy were in those episodes as well. After that, numerous guest appearances on many other TV shows followed, but it was on ABC's Room 222 where Judy's star really took off. From 1969 to 1974, Judy co-starred in that show as one of the students, Helen Loomis. According to IMDb, she was in 70 episodes, so most of them. My memories of Room 222 are that it came after the Brady Bunch on Friday nights, and sometimes, just sometimes, we could watch it. But because the show tended to tackle controversial subjects of the day, there were many Friday evenings where the old man would shut us down and suggest that we go read or something. I know, right? Go read or something? What was he thinking? Anyway, as Room 222 was winding down, Judy discovered that she was also a talented vocal actress, and she started getting steady work doing that kind of stuff. She was on Saturday morning shows like Hanna-Barbera's The Roman Holidays, as well as another fun show, Wheelie and the Chopper Bunch. While I wasn't a huge fan of either of these particular cartoons, it was her next Saturday morning project that would make me a fan forever. Yep, we're talking about Electra Woman and Dyna Girl here, and I got to say that it was Electra-fantastic. In a fairly recent podcast, Judy mentioned that all 16 episodes were filmed over the course of just a couple of weeks. According to Judy, they would film almost an episode every day. Holy cow, Batman, think about that. Making Electra Woman and Dyna Girl was really just a tiny, teeny blip in Judy's life, and yet here we are decades later still talking about it. After hanging up the cape and tights, Judy found work on TV shows like Chips, where she made a couple of appearances, and also on The Misadventures of Sheriff Lobo. I promised to talk more about that show, which was a spin-off of BJ and the Bear, at a later date. For the time being, however, let's get back to Judy. In 1981, she provided the voice for the title character in the Ruby Spears Saturday morning show Goldie Gold and Action Jack. Goldie is a super rich heiress on the show. Think Paris Hilton kind of money, and along with her dog Nugget, oh yeah, and some reporter named Action Jack, she would, on a weekly basis, stumble into some kind of amazing adventure. I actually like this cartoon a lot. It came out right after Raiders of the Lost Ark hit the big screen, and although very different, it had a similar kind of vibe. Judy's last live-action appearance on TV was in a 1984 episode of Matt Houston, in which her character was, ironically enough, billed as Judith Strangis, playing a version of herself, I guess. I'm sure a dramatically different version than the real Judy, but it did seem like a fitting way to say adios to her fans. Aside from a couple of small voice acting gigs, Judy's time in front of a camera or microphone appeared to be over. In 1987, Judy helped write the story for a CBS school break special about bulimia titled Little Miss Perfect. That particular episode was very well done and would earn Judy an Emmy nomination. But that, as far as I can tell, was it. So what happened and where did she go? Well, if you ask the internet, you will see various comments about a stalker of some sort. Most make mention that the stalker was never identified or apprehended, but it was enough to force Judy into making some very life-changing decisions. Again, I can't verify this, but if true, that had to be a very scary time for her. Whatever happened, we know for sure that Judy decided it was time to call it a career and just go live her life, and who can blame her for that? You know, there really isn't all that much information about Judy Strangis, the real person out there. In that same podcast I referred to earlier, Judy noted that she is a pretty private person, and I want to respect that. I do know she's married, or at least some point she was. I'm hoping she still is, and I also know that she kind of stays away from the whole social media thing. If what I mentioned earlier was true, it's easy to understand why she might want to avoid things like Facebook and Twitter. But that doesn't mean that she's a recluse by any means. Judy has made appearances at various events honoring her past work. Here she is in 2010 with cast members from Room 222. Seriously, it doesn't look like either she or Karen Valentine have aged a day. Pretty darn impressive. One might even say they look Electra terrific. And here she is with our boys Sid and Marty, along with Electra Woman herself, Deirdre Hall. Wow. Again, these ladies look Electra awesome. I've referred to a couple of times in this video a podcast that Judy was on a few years ago. That podcast is called the Comic Book Central Podcast, and it's a pretty darn fun listen if you're into comics, TV, and movies. Judy appeared in episode 49, but the podcast is well over 200 episodes now. Like I said, if you're a fan of the same things that I am, you might want to add it to your podcast listening queue. Okay, that is it. One last picture. What a stunning beauty. Alright, now it's your turn. Please share your memories in the comments section, and while you're at it, I would appreciate a thumbs up. Maybe even share this video on Facebook or Twitter, and what the heck? Why not subscribe to the channel? I talk about music, movies, and television, mostly from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. You know, the good stuff. But most importantly, and as always, thank you so much for watching.
Batman vitamins with breakfast, it's a super-powered way to start your day. Bam! Pow!
Batman vitamins. Yeah, what a superpower way to start your day. Okay. Well, it looks like Power Records is not going to get shown in the Classic TV Funhouse today. We're going to show the live-action Spider-Man video in just a few minutes. But first, I want to read a few more comments. Let me go out to the comment section, see what's going on here. Let's see. So much. It's hard for me to even, I'm going to scroll down to the bottom here and let me get caught up. Ward Arcade, welcome to live stream, says those kids seem sedate on the playground. You'd think they were ready to join the Cape Crusader from that jingle. Laugh out loud. Tom McCluskey says, met the Croft brothers with the Sundstrom brothers several years ago. Yeah, when was that? Was that 2021? 2022? Not all that long ago, and it was a really wonderful treat to meet you, Thomas. If I haven't told that story before, I went, my brother and I decided to go to the first and only Croft Con a few years back, and Pat McCormack, who is another friend of mine who is a YouTube creator, among other things, said, hey, I'd like to go with you guys. And then we found out that Tom was going to be there as well. When we got to the event, Tom had a frosty Diet Coke waiting for me. And, you know, what can I say? Thank you so much, Tom. See, Maximus Prime is here. And Ward Presac is here. Gary Carpenter says Electra Woman and Dyna Girl were the new Batman and Robin. They certainly were inspired by Batman and Robin, the campy 60s TV show. Mike Davis points out that DC Comics have done crossovers over the years with Scooby-Doo. Primarily, it seems like Batman's usually crossing over with Scooby, with Elmer, with Bugs Bunny, with the Blue Falcon and Dynamite. And Mike goes on to say, I would love to see them do a comics crossover with Batman and Electra Woman and Dyna Girl. How cool would that be? Oh, yeah, that would be awesome, Mike. All right, we're going to wrap this thing up in the next, well, you know, I'm going to keep this to a lean and mean hour here, but we're going to do some commercials. And then we're going to talk a little bit about live action Spider-Man. You guys seem to want that one. Let's do her. All right, first the commercials.
It's a bird! It's a plane! It's Superman!
Superman with flyaway action. Assembly required. Jor-El, General Zod, and Lex Luthor each sold separately. It's Superman! And this is Wonder Woman. You can make her fly with flyaway action. Assembly required. Wonder Woman. You can make her fly. Superman and Wonder Woman, both with a flyaway action pack. All figures sold separately by Mego.
Lex Luthor has Superman trapped. He's using kryptonite to destroy his powers.
Now you'll tell me why Superman peanut butter tastes so great. Never. So fresh roasted, so creamy, so yummy. That its secret will be mine, all mine. Foiled again! Just wait, Superman. I'll find out.
Superman peanut butter. Its strength is its great taste.
Supergirl has the ability to save millions upon millions of lives with her great superpowers. Americans have the ability to save thousands of lives, one at a time.
16,000 people die each year in car crashes that don't have to. Safety belts could save their lives. Safety belts could also prevent thousands from being horribly disfigured or crippled for life. So buckle up. Your life is in your hands.
The legendary adventure continues. A vicious alien has eyes for Lana.
He has come for me, but I must kill the others first.
Powerless. Can Superboy save his friends?
That creature took Lana.
I waited so long for the Red One to come.
Please let me go.
I've killed them both.
on the next adventure of Superboy.
Coming from the farthest reaches of the universe to challenge the worst villains on Earth are the most powerful heroes ever in the battle of the Superpowers Collection. Can it be the Supermobile on the attack, the Lexor 7 armed with kryptonite? Will the Supermobile repel those deadly rays?
You bet. Ready for battle. Activate RAM.
New from Kenner's Superpowers Collection. Vehicles and figures with power action, each sold separately. Flying lessons for Penguin, fish bait for Luther. Can the Supermobile defeat the Lexor 7? You decide.
Of all the Marvel comic book characters, Spider-Man has always been my favorite. Growing up, I loved the animated series. But this video is not about the Ralph Bakshi classic cartoon. Instead, let's spend a little time talking about my favorite live-action Spider-Man from 70s television. So first, let's talk about the version of Spidey that showed up on network TV, CBS TV to be exact. During the latter half of the 70s, CBS seemed to be the home for Marvel comic book characters on television. Most well known was, of course, the Incredible Hulk. But I remember a couple of Captain America movies, a Doctor Strange movie, and of course, what I'm talking about here today. This version of Spider-Man debuted in a couple of television movies starring Nicholas Hammond. Hammond was a bit old in my mind to play Peter Parker, but he wasn't my biggest gripe in terms of casting. It was Robert F. Simon who was cast as J. Jonah Jameson in the second TV movie in the series that, well, he wasn't my J. Jonah. He just didn't seem blustery enough. I needed an actor who could really project his absolute disgust for the wall crawler, and I never thought this guy could. Quick piece of trivia, David White, who played Darren's boss Larry Tate in Bewitched, was J. Jonah in the first TV movie. Anyway, let me step off my J. Jonah soapbox and talk about Nicholas Hammond for just a moment. Yep, he does look familiar, and yes, he was one of the children in The Sound of Music. He wasn't a bad Peter Parker. He really wasn't. Just a bit old for the role. Personally, I liked his appearance on The Brady Bunch. Yep, I'll admit it, I have a soft spot for Sherwood Schwartz comedies, especially The Brady Bunch. More to come on that show on another day, but Hammond's appearance on The Brady Bunch just happened to be during one of my favorite episodes, where it's a classic episode, in fact, where Marcia gets hit in the face with a football. When her nose swells up, she learns some really important lessons about how people treat each other based on their appearances. Hammond also got a chance to make a guest appearance on the TV version of Logan's Run with his Sound of Music co-star, the lovely Heather Menzies. And according to Wikipedia, after the Spider-Man series ended, Hammond guest starred on a lot of shows in the early 80s, including The Love Boat, Magnum P.I., Murder, She Wrote, and recurring roles on Falcon Crest and Dallas. It was when he was cast as yachtsman Dennis Conner in the 1986 Australian TV miniseries The Challenge that Hammond realized he loved Australia and decided to stay there. Hammond shows up on TV and movies every now and again, but really more than anything else, he just seems to be enjoying life. Anyway, getting back to your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Well, folks, without CGI and all of the cool effects that we take for granted today, the web slinger's special abilities were, to be frank, at least on this show, a little less special. The team involved in the series did their best with what they had, given their budget. They were a network TV show, but really, the web slinging, the wall crawling, was all pretty lame. It's probably the reason why it would be many years before another live-action version of Spider-Man was attempted again. And that's not to say that the movies and the series weren't enjoyable. They certainly had their moments. One of my favorite was when Joanna Cameron guest starred. But guess what, folks? This live-action version isn't my favorite. In fact, the live-action version of Spider-Man that's my favorite, well, it starred a little-known actor /puppeteer /dancer named Danny Seagren. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, I bet he's talking about Spidey Super Stories on that educational program, The Electric Company, you would be 100% correct. And if you're thinking, what the heck, the web slinging and the wall crawling on this version was even worse than the CBS series, well, you'd be 100% correct as well. But you know what? I don't care. This is the live-action version that is nearest and dearest to my heart. Well, at least until we got the Sam Raimi movies. Once we went there, well, game over. So the story behind the story is that Marvel allowed the Electric Company, which was part of the Public Broadcasting System's educational lineup, to use the character of Spider-Man free of charge. It was Stan Lee and team's chance to do a little good in this world, and of course, it also introduced future customers to one of Marvel's biggest draws. And these Spidey super stories were 3 to 5 minute adventures that started appearing on the Electric Company during Season 4. In this version of Spider-Man, our hero didn't speak out loud. Instead, kids would need to read comic balloons. Yep, there's the educational part of the series. But beyond helping kids read, the episodes were really silly and a whole lot of fun. There were no special effects for things like Spider-Man spinning his web. And so what we would get instead would be an actual comic book panel. Throughout it all, Danny Seagren just crossed his fingers and hoped to high heavens that the creative team involved didn't figure out that because there was no Peter Parker in this version of Spider-Man, they really could have put almost anyone that was roughly the same size and stature in the costume. Danny's a really interesting guy, and there are a couple of great articles on him out there on the interwebs. Just do a Google search and you'll find them. His last name is spelled S-E-A-G-R-E-N. These days, Danny hits the comic conventions from time to time and leads the kind of life that one might expect of someone who never really showed his face on TV. Complete anonymity, unless of course he wants to draw attention to his famous past. So that's it, folks. Do you remember seeing Spider-Man on the Electric Company or on the primetime series on CBS? If so, what did you think? Did you prefer one over the other? I'm betting it would have a lot to do on your age. Let me know in the comment section below, and while you're at it, please click on the thumbs up icon, and why not consider subscribing to my channel. I talk about music, movies, and television, mostly from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. You know, the good stuff. But most importantly, and as always, thank you so much for watching.
Someone is trying to embarrass me.
Yes, indeed. Thanks to each and every one of you for hanging out with me today, for your support of the channel. Truly appreciated. To my channel members, an extra special thank you. But to everyone that just wanted to hang out in the Funhouse today, yeah, I'm appreciative. It's a great way to spend an hour. All right, I'm going to get out of here, and I'm going to let Fred Rogers, as always, sing us on out for the show today. So take care, everyone. Thanks again. Talk to you soon.
You are special.
You know, whenever I think about classic TV, I immediately think about the Frndly TV streaming service that has over 50 channels, many of them showcasing classic television shows from decades gone by for a crazy low price. You can try the service free for 7 days by clicking on the link in the description section, and when you do, you're supporting this channel. Thanks.
Click on that thumbnail cause it's time to go. Dave's got the classics, let the memories flow. TV shows and movies that we all hold so dear. On his YouTube channel he's keeping memories near. Dave Sundstrom, bringing back the good stuff, oh yeah.